Founded in Coventry, England in 1885, the S. Bettman and Company was founded by Sigfried Bettman in his early 20s. Bettman sold bicycles as well as sewing machines. In 1886, Bettman was looking for a better name for his company. The company would change their name to Triumph Cycle Company. The company got a cash infusion from Dunlop Pneumatic Tire Company.
Moritz Schulte
Became Bettman's partner in 1888. Schulte would work at W.M. Andrews Bicycle Company to gain information into the bicycle business. The first Triumph bicycles were essentially rebranded bicycles purchased from W.M. Andrews and sold in 1889. The Andrews bikes were sophisticated machines for their time. It would cost a fortune to build a bike such as the Andrew bike from scratch. Safety bike designs would become the designs of the 1890s. Thanks to the standardization and increased components, Bettman and Schulte would be able to produce their own bicycles and bicycle parts. In 1902, Triumph would offer their first motorcycle or motorbike, which were powered by a 2.25 horsepower Belgium Minerva engines, which that company also produced motorbikes as well and just sold engines to various other companies for their motorcycle and or motorbike engines. Eventually, Triumph would switch and go to the JAP or JAP engines. Their very first motorcycle was called the Model 1 and was produced from 1902 through 1904. In 1905, Triumph would introduce the second model, which was produced in 1905 with Triumph's very own engine, making this the first year that it was all Triumph. Triumph's engine was a 363cc displacement single-cylinder side-valve engine that produced 3 horsepower and was designed by Charles Hathaway. 250 were produced. Triumph would win the single class in 1908 TT races on the Isles of Man. By that time, Triumph was a leading contender in the world of competition motorcycle racing. Production was up to around 1,000 motorcycles per year. From 1908 through 1909, the Model 474 was produced. It used a 474cc single-cylinder engine with a single-speed transmission. Model TT was the first Triumph without pedals. It used a 500cc single-cylinder and was produced from 1909 through 1914. A little bit of a side note caveat from doing some research. All the years from all the different sites that I've checked are different, so take the years with a grain of salt. The Model Roadster came in 1910 and was produced until 1913. Displacement was up to 500cc, single-cylinder, single-speed, optional rear hub clutch to freewheel. 14 displacement was 550cc, backed by a 3-speed Sturmey Archer rear hub. Triumph would supply the Allies with motorcycles during World War I, with an all-new model, the Model H, with an engine displacement of 499cc single-cylinder, making 4 horsepower and backed by the Sturmey Archer 3-speed countershaft gearbox, operated by hand lever. More than 30,000 Triumph Model H's were produced by the end of World War I in 1918. The Model H was known as the Trusty, which also was Triumph's slogan in the 1910s, Trusty Triumph. The Model H would be produced until 1923. Triumph would produce 57,000 Model H's. After World War I, Bettman and his partner, Schulte, had a bit of a falling out. Schulte wanted to replace the bicycles, which they were still producing, with automobiles. Schulte would leave the company in the early 20s. In 1921, Bettman would start producing automobiles. He bought either the Hillman or Dawson car company. Sources conflict on what car company he bought. Perhaps he bought both of them to produce the 1020. The company would change its name to Triumph Motor Car Company in 1930 and would be bankrupt by 1939. It was acquired by Standard Motor Company. Standard Motor Company would be acquired by British Leyland Motors in 1960 and would be retired. The mark would be in 1984. BMW would acquire the rights in 1994. But getting back to the motorcycle part, Model SD was introduced in 1920 and produced until 1926. SD stood for Spring Drive. It was a 550cc single backed by a 3-speed gearbox. In 1921, Triumph would build an absolute legend, the Ricardo, Ricky, or the Model R. It was commissioned and also named after Triumph's engine expert. They would take a 499cc engine and would add more valves to it, 4 valves on a single cylinder, which were overhead valve instead of side valve. It produced an incredible 20 horsepower, and it was capable of speeds of 70 miles per hour. It was produced from 1921 through 1928. Introduced in 1925 and was available until 1926, the Model P. It used a 494cc side valve engine, single cylinder. It was the most affordable single-cylinder bike that was on offer, with a price of £42, which would be like you spending $4,101.73 in the year 2024, undercutting all of the competition. It was followed by the Model N in 1926. Triumph would offer a semi-automatic oil pump built in. There was a secondary hand pump for anyone that didn't trust the mechanical pump, wired on the tires to replace the bead edge, allowing lower tire pressure for better ride. The rear brake was also integrated into the hub instead of using the rim brakes. The Model N was only made for 1 year, 1927. It was replaced by the Model NP for 1928. In 1930, Triumph would offer a smaller displacement bike called the Model X, or the Junior. It was one of the first bikes ever to have unit construction where the engine and gearbox were combined, powered by a 173.8cc single with 2 speeds, produced from 1930 through 1932. Some sources say it goes until 1934. Like I said, with the Triumphs, every source you go to has different years for the different models. By 1931, Triumph offered 10 models. They offered a new range of inclined machines, which were single-cylinder engines that were angled, the more common term, sloped. Model WO, which was a 249cc design, and it was Triumph's first 250cc bike. Model WA, which was also 249cc single port and was cheaper than the WO. WL 348cc side valve engine. All of them came with 3-speed gearbox. 4 speeds were available as an option after 1932. Triumph struggled during the Depression years. They had a German subsidiary that was independent company, and they had to sell it off to try to stay afloat. That company would merge with Adler to become Triumph Adler. In 1932, Triumph would sell their bicycle plant to Raleigh Bicycle Company. Bettman was forced out as chairman and left the company altogether in 1933. Triumph's first twin came in 1933 as the Triumph 6-1, often referred to as the Parallel 6. The twin-cylinder engine had a displacement of 649cc, making 25 horsepower at 4,500 RPM. 4-speed manual hand shift or floor shift was available in 1935. It was good for 80 to 85 miles per hour, designed by Val Page. This 6-1 was a commercial failure for Triumph, with only 600 being produced from 1933 through 1936. Jack Slangster took over in 1936, which was also the same year Triumph started exporting to the United States. Slangster would change the company name to Triumph Engineering Company Ltd. Introduced in 1936, Triumph Tiger, designed by Edward Turner, and was Triumph's new line of lightweight 6-cylinder bikes. Model names ranged from Tiger 70, 80, 90. The model numbers represented top speed. When World War II broke out in 1939, the Tiger evolved into the Triumph 3HW. In 1937, Triumph introduced an all-new 500cc speed twin model designed by Edward Turner. The bike featured overhead valve, vertical twin engine in a lightweight frame. It was the first successful British parallel twin and would become the standard for all twins that followed. 498cc parallel twin. It was good for 27 horsepower at 6,300 RPM. It was backed with a 4-speed manual transmission with chain drive. Triumph Speed Twin was produced from 1937 through 1940. World War II happened and then they picked back up in 47 through 66. On November 14th, 1940, a German air raid took place over Coventry, England, known as the Coventry Blitz. It leveled much of the city as well as the Triumph plant. Triumph would resume production at a new factory in Meridian, where they would make the Tiger 100, which was a twin-cylinder bike. Triumph would build bikes for the Allies during World War II, producing 40,000 motorcycles for the military. But, as they say, that's another episode for another day. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather, and these aren't fair, but which one would you rather have? 1924 Triumph Ricardo, or 1937 Triumph Tiger 70, or 1930 Triumph Model X Junior. I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to the second scenario, 1935 Triumph Parallel Twin 6.1, or 1937 Triumph Speed Twin, or 1940 Triumph Tiger 100. Once again, I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of it. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below. I read and answer all comments posted. I don't say that for self-worth. I just say that if you post a comment, I will definitely read it. Or drop me a line at _like@yahoo.com. Thank you all so much for all the information that you guys bring to this car community. And until next time, toodaloo!